Hi everyone, I'm Adam Bandt, leader of the Greens, and I'm here with McKim, our economic justice spokesperson. We're coming to you from First Nations country here in this place called Canberra, and we acknowledge the traditional owners and that we're looking through this budget here on stolen land. And we've been looking through this budget that the Treasurer has just delivered, and can tell you one thing, it makes me incredibly angry. This is a budget for billionaires and big corporations that is going to entrench inequality and fast-track climate collapse. This budget could have been so many good things. This budget could have been the opportunity for us to make our country a more equal place and to address the climate crisis that we're facing. And instead, when we're going into this budget with 1 in 3 big corporations paying no tax, and billionaires having increased their wealth during the pandemic by over 30%, instead of making the big corporations and billionaires pay their fair share so that we could then get dental into Medicare, have free education and lift people out of poverty, this budget does exactly the opposite. There's $50 billion in handouts, that's billion with a B, to coal, oil and gas, including $1.1 billion in new money for new coal and gas projects. In the middle of a climate crisis, this government has found $50 billion to not only fund existing coal and gas corporations, but to allow new coal and gas projects to be opened up, paid for in part by the public. And that is going to fast-track the climate collapse. But they haven't forgotten their other big corporate and billionaire mates as well. As I said, coming out of a pandemic, where 1.5 million people lost their incomes, billionaires massively increased their wealth. This budget gives $62 billion a year to big corporations and billionaires to allow them to continue to get richer and post record profits. But meanwhile, wages will go backwards for the next 2 years. In other words, this budget is premised on people's wages going backwards for 2 years and flatlining after that, based on job seekers continuing to live in poverty, but there's $62 billion a year for big corporations and billionaires. I mean, there's probably a lot more in it that we haven't got to yet and that we're going to find out as we go through the detail, but it clearly is a budget that delivers for the people who donate to the Liberal and the Labor parties.
Sure does, Adam. We're heading towards the cliff of climate catastrophe, and not only has the government got its foot nowhere near the brakes, it's actually jammed its right foot even harder onto the accelerator by increasing the public subsidies that are going into the big fossil fuel corporations, many of whom, as Adam's pointed out, are donors to the LNP. Adam's right, a fantasy budget if you're a billionaire or a big corporate. If you're an ordinary person who can't find work because there's not enough jobs there for everyone who wants one, if you're underemployed, and we know millions of Australians are underemployed, you've got flatlining wages in real terms, and in fact wages will go backwards in real terms over the next 2 years according to the forecasts in this budget. So ordinary people miss out, nature still gets trashed, the climate crisis accelerates. This is a budget where if you're making your money by trashing the joint, you're going to be very, very happy. If you're an ordinary Australian trying to get by or a young person trying to get into the housing market, you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, basically, the budget basically gives the middle finger to young people. There is nothing in this budget for young people except more money for corporations that are going to cook the future. There's no new money for building new public housing or doing anything that's going to make housing more affordable for young people. In fact, the government's going to continue to give about $8 billion a year to people who've already got 2, 3 or 4 homes to continue to subsidise them to go and buy another couple and then write it off as a tax dodge courtesy of the public purse. So they're going to keep putting money in to make housing more expensive, but nothing to build more public housing or make housing more affordable for young people. The budget bakes in a 10% cut to education funding, so that double cost of degrees that many people are going to have been hit with is going to really kick in and is really going to bite hard, and universities and education generally is going to have less money to do the things that they need to do. And the tragedy of it all is that at the same time as they're giving out $62 billion a year to billionaires and big corporations, they say, oh, there's not enough money to get dental into Medicare or to have free education. It's all about priorities, and we've learned about the governments tonight.
We sure have.